I don't remember when I started noticing how she hesitated before saying no. It wasn't a harsh no, not the kind that kills a moment. It was softer, almost thoughtful, like she was considering it for real before deciding it wasn't the right time. That's what kept me there, I think. That pause, the half-second of possibility that made me believe she wasn't rejecting me completely, just postponing something inevitable. We weren't together, not really. We called it friendship, but it had the shape of something more, even if we never named it. We stayed up late, watched movies, talked about everything, drank cheap wine. I'd walk her home. Sometimes I stayed over. Nothing happened, not once, but every time I thought it might. She'd sit too close on the couch, her knee brushing mine, her hand resting near enough to touch. Then she'd pull away, pretending not to notice. It became a rhythm, a kind of game neither of us admitted to playing. I'd lean in a little. She'd laugh, avert her eyes, change the subject. The first few times I told myself I respected her boundaries. Later I told myself I was patient. Eventually I stopped telling myself anything at all. It just became what we did. She was quiet when she turned me down, never defensive, never cruel. She'd say things like, "I'm just tired," or "not tonight," or "let's just watch something." Each phrase felt rehearsed, gentle but final. I'd nod, pretend I was fine with it, and leave after midnight. The walk home was always the same. Cold air, quiet streets, hands shoved in my pockets. I'd think about how she looked at me, the little smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, the way she'd brush her hair back when I got too close. Those gestures burned into me. I memorized them without meaning to. The way her voice softened when she said my name. The way her apartment light flickered just before I stepped outside. I'd look back, hoping she'd still be at the window. She never was. At first I thought maybe she needed time. That she was scared of ruining what we had. I told myself to wait, to keep showing up, to be kind, consistent. I brought her coffee when she worked late. Fixed things around her place, a broken shelf, a leaky faucet. She'd thank me, smile, touch my arm briefly, then drift away again. I noticed she never initiated anything physical, not even casual touches. It was always me reaching out. Her body stayed slightly turned away, as if protecting itself. Still, she let me in, let me close enough to hope. One night we were on her couch, watching some forgettable movie. She was half asleep, head resting against the pillow. I shifted closer, just enough that I could feel her breath against my neck. She didn't move. I thought maybe this was it. I whispered her name. She stirred, opened her eyes, and looked at me, not angry, not afraid, just tired. "Don't," she said quietly. I froze. She turned back toward the screen. We didn't speak for the rest of the movie. When it ended, I said I should go. She didn't stop me. That night, walking home, I felt something crack inside me. Not anger, not heartbreak, just a dull recognition that the balance had shifted. She had the power to deny me, and I was still there, waiting. The next time we met, she acted like nothing had happened. I tried to do the same, but the air felt heavier, full of unsaid things. I caught myself watching her too closely, the way she poured wine, the way she tucked her legs under herself when she sat. Every movement felt deliberate, rehearsed. I started to wonder if she liked the attention, the small control she had over me. I didn't blame her. Maybe I even admired it. She knew exactly how far to let me in without ever giving anything real back. It wasn't cruelty. It was calculation. And I let her do it. Sometimes I'd linger by her door before leaving, waiting for her to say something, to stop me, to offer a reason to stay. She never did. The sound of the latch clicking behind me became familiar, final. I'd stand there for a few seconds, listening to her footsteps fade. Once, I thought I heard her crying after I left. I didn't go back. The next morning, she texted me like nothing happened, a meme, a random comment. I replied. Of course I did. Weeks blurred together. The same pattern, the same soft refusals. I started timing them in my head, noticing how her tone shifted depending on her mood. Sometimes she sounded almost apologetic. Other times, distracted, like she'd already moved on in her mind. I told myself I wasn't hurt, that it was fine, but I stopped sleeping well. I'd lie awake replaying our conversations, analyzing each word, trying to find the moment when something changed, if it ever did. I wanted to ask her why. Why she kept me close but not too close. Why she smiled that certain way when I left, like she knew something I didn't. But I didn't ask. I never wanted to see her lie. Once, at her place, I reached out without thinking, my hand on her shoulder, my thumb tracing the line of her collarbone. She didn't pull away immediately. She just looked at me, expression unreadable. Then she stood up, slow, deliberate, and said, "You should go." I did. She didn't text me for 3 days. When she finally did, it was just, "You okay?" I said yes. I didn't ask if she was. After that, something changed in me. I stopped hoping, but I didn't stop coming over. I told myself I liked her company, that I didn't need anything else. But the truth was, I couldn't leave it alone. I wanted to understand. What was it about me that made her close the door halfway but never open it fully? I started noticing details: the faint perfume she wore, the chipped nail polish, the faint line between her eyebrows when she was thinking. I caught myself cataloging her. Each observation felt like control, like a substitute for what I couldn't have. She probably sensed it. She started avoiding eye contact when I looked at her too long. Once, during dinner, she laughed too hard at something trivial. I realized she was nervous. I wondered if she thought I'd try again. Maybe she feared confrontation, or maybe she liked keeping things just uncertain enough to hold my attention. Either way, it worked. I couldn't walk away. I told myself I was being mature, giving her space, respecting her pace. But each night I left, the silence between us grew heavier. She started apologizing more. For nothing in particular. "Sorry I've been distant. Sorry I didn't text back. Sorry I'm a mess." Each apology felt like bait, a small act of vulnerability to keep me tethered. I didn't call her out on it. I just nodded, said it was fine. It was easier to pretend we were both trapped in something complicated than admit I was the only one who couldn't move on. The last night followed the same pattern. Dinner, wine, her playlist in the background. She was quiet, softer than usual. I thought maybe this was it, the shift I'd been waiting for. We sat close on the couch, shoulders touching. She didn't move away. I turned to face her. Her eyes met mine for a second, then dropped. I reached for her hand. She didn't pull back, but she didn't return the pressure either. Just stillness. I leaned in, slow enough to give her time to stop me. She didn't. Our lips almost touched when she whispered, "Don't make me." I froze again. The words were different this time. Not rejection, not refusal. Just exhaustion. She looked so tired. I sat back. She turned away. I stayed for a while, pretending to watch the movie. She fell asleep on the couch, or maybe just closed her eyes to avoid me. I couldn't tell. The room felt heavy, too warm, too quiet. I got up, turned off the light, and left without saying goodbye. On the walk home, I realized I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad. I just felt empty, like I'd been slowly hollowed out over weeks without noticing. The night air was sharp, grounding. For the first time, I didn't look back at her window. The next day, she texted, "Are you mad at me?" I stared at it for a long time. I typed, deleted, retyped. Finally I wrote, "No, just tired." She sent a heart emoji. That was all. That tiny red symbol felt like the cruelest thing she'd ever done. I stopped going over after that. Told her I was busy, that I needed space. She didn't fight it. Maybe she was relieved. But sometimes, late at night, she'd still text small, meaningless things. "Can't sleep. Saw something that reminded me of you. Miss our talks." I always answered, short replies, nothing personal. I told myself it meant nothing. But every time, that same flicker of hope came back, just long enough to hurt again. I don't know what I expected from her. Maybe I thought persistence would turn into love if I just stayed long enough. Maybe I wanted her to see me the way I saw her, as something inevitable. But she never did. She wanted my presence without the cost of my closeness. And I gave it freely, again and again, until there was nothing left to give. The last time we spoke in person, she hugged me goodbye. It was the first time she'd initiated touch. Her arms were light around me, her head against my shoulder. I barely moved. When she pulled away, her eyes looked wet. She said, "You're a good person." I nodded. She smiled, small and sad, then closed the door. I stood there, listening, until I heard the click of the lock. Then I walked away. I didn't look back this time either. After I stopped seeing her, the days felt strangely hollow, like someone had turned down the volume on everything. I told people I was fine. They believed me. I even believed myself for a while. But she lingered. Not in some romantic way, more like residue, a faint echo that refused to fade. I'd think of her when I passed certain places, heard certain songs. It wasn't longing exactly. It was curiosity that never got resolved. I kept wondering what she was doing, how she spent her time when I wasn't around. The questions didn't hurt. They just occupied space. Quietly, persistently, I still had her on social media. I told myself I didn't care. But I noticed when she changed her profile picture, when she liked certain posts, When someone new started showing up in her comments, I never interacted, never posted anything that could draw her attention. I didn't want her to know I was watching, but I was, always just enough to feel the pulse of her life without stepping into it. There was comfort in that distance, safety, control. After a few weeks, the need to know grew sharper. It wasn't enough to scroll through photos or read between the lines of her captions. I wanted to understand the rhythms of her days again, the things I used to notice without trying: when she made coffee, when she took showers, how long she spent on the phone before bed. Those small habits had become familiar to me once, almost intimate. I missed that quiet knowledge more than I missed her voice. So I began reconstructing it. Not deliberately, not at first. Just small observations that added up over time. I still lived a few streets away. Sometimes, walking home late, I'd take the long route past her building. It wasn't strange, just coincidence, I told myself, but I always slowed down when I reached her block. Sometimes her window light was on, sometimes not. I told myself I was just curious if she was awake. I never lingered long. A few seconds, maybe a minute. But those moments filled something empty in me. Soon, I started noticing patterns again. Thursdays, her lights stayed on later. Sundays, she kept them dim, maybe candles. I could tell when she had company, different shadows, movement, voices faint through the window. I didn't strain to listen. I didn't need to. It was enough to know. I kept everything quiet inside, calm, detached. I didn't write anything down at first, but later I did. Small notes in my phone. Nothing detailed. Just timestamps, fragments. Lights off 12:43. Music, slower tonight. Window open. Simple observations, harmless in themselves. They made me feel steady. I told myself this was about closure, understanding. She had left me with so many unanswered things, and this was my way of balancing it. She controlled the yes and no, the boundaries, the silence. Now I controlled the distance. I was outside it, untouched, watching. There was something clean about that. Sometimes I'd see her leave for work in the morning. Always the same time, same coat. She walked fast, focused, earbuds in. I'd cross the street before she noticed me. Once she did, or at least I think she did. Our eyes almost met before she turned away. She didn't smile. I didn't wave. After that, I started walking earlier, before she came out. Routine adjusted. Efficient. She posted less online after a while. I wondered if she'd sensed something, not me specifically, just the general awareness of being watched. Some people can feel that. The subtle pressure of eyes on them. She began drawing curtains earlier in the evening, changed her lights to a warmer hue, rearranged her furniture slightly. The couch moved away from the window. I noticed. I always noticed. I didn't resent her for it. If anything, I respected it. Her instinct for self-preservation was sharp, like mine. We were still in sync in small, invisible ways. I told myself this wasn't about her anymore. It was about control, discipline, focus, the quiet study of someone who once mattered. The act of observation became its own ritual, clean, predictable. It felt almost scientific. At night, when I couldn't sleep, I'd replay our last months in my head. Each no, each look, each pause. I'd analyze them as if they were data points. I started to realize that she had never truly been rejecting me. She was rejecting the reflection of herself she saw in me, the way I looked at her, the expectations I carried. Maybe she sensed how much I noticed, how much I remembered. That kind of attention can feel heavy. It can make you want to disappear. I didn't blame her, but part of me wanted her to know I was still here. Not because I wanted her back, just because I wanted her to feel what I had felt, that quiet awareness of being observed, gently but persistently. I didn't plan anything dramatic. No messages, no confrontation. I never touched her door or left signs. I kept my distance perfectly measured. I learned her world's timing so well I didn't need to look anymore. I could predict it. When she'd turn off her lights, when she'd step onto the balcony to smoke, when she'd pause by the window, looking out at nothing. Sometimes, standing in the dark, I'd think she was looking right through me. There were nights when guilt brushed against me, light as dust. I'd think about how strange it would sound if I said it out loud. That I knew the rhythm of her nights better than my own. That I didn't feel malice, just precision. The idea of her crying that night I left, it returned sometimes. The sound I thought I'd heard. It didn't make me pity her. It just made me certain we had been closer than she admitted. People don't cry like that for nothing. She started seeing someone new eventually. I knew before she posted about it. I could tell from the way she moved. Lighter, quicker, more distracted. Some nights she didn't come home alone. I stopped watching on those nights. It wasn't jealousy. It was disinterest. The balance had shifted again. She was giving herself to someone else, but in doing that she also gave me something: detachment, distance. I no longer felt pulled toward her, only curious how long it would last. Still, I kept the notes. Fewer now, but still precise. They weren't about her anymore, not really. They were about me, about what I noticed, what patterns I could track. The act of watching had become a habit, like checking the time. Sometimes I thought about deleting them, but I never did. They were proof that I had once paid attention, that I could still be meticulous when everything else felt blurred. One night I saw her standing by the window, phone to her ear, back turned. Her voice was faint, indistinct, but I could tell from her posture she was upset. Shoulders tense, hand trembling slightly as she gestured while talking. After a while, she put the phone down and leaned her forehead against the glass. I don't know why, but I looked away. For the first time, it felt like I'd crossed something invisible. Not because she saw me, but because I'd felt something, a flicker of the old ache. I didn't like it. I left before she turned around. After that, I stopped going by as often. But the pattern was already inside me. I didn't need to see her to feel it. I knew when she was home, when she wasn't. I could sense it the way you sense weather changing. Some part of me was still attuned to her, but quieter now, calmer. It wasn't fixation anymore. It was maintenance, keeping the equilibrium. Months passed like that. We didn't speak. Sometimes she'd text, short things, surface level. I'd respond politely, nothing personal. Each exchange felt like a check-in neither of us fully understood. Maybe she missed the attention. Maybe she wanted to confirm I was still there, somewhere. I always was. Then one evening, near midnight, she called. I didn't pick up. The next morning she texted, "I had a bad dream. Just wanted to hear your voice." I didn't reply. Not out of cruelty. I just didn't see the point. We had traded places without realizing it. She was the one reaching into the dark now. I was the one watching quietly, unbothered. Sometimes I wonder what she dreams about. Whether she senses the shape of me still hovering near the edges of her life, faint but steady. People can feel that kind of presence even when they can't explain it. The subtle shift in air, the momentary unease when you think someone's there but can't prove it. I like to think she feels that sometimes. Not fear, just awareness. The way I used to feel when she looked at me but didn't see me. Now, when I pass her street, I don't slow down. But I still glance up, always the same window, always the same faint light. I don't need to stay. It's enough to know I could. That she's still there, moving through her routines, unaware of how clearly they still play in my head. It's not obsession anymore. It's memory, disciplined into something quieter. Some nights, when I can't sleep, I open the notes on my phone and scroll through them. The old timestamps, the brief observations. They feel distant now, like someone else wrote them. But I never delete them. They remind me of a time when I cared enough to pay attention. That's all it ever was, really. Attention. The kind that cuts quietly, without intent. I think about that sometimes, how the smallest rejections don't end when they happen. They echo, stretching into no forms. You think you've moved on, but the shape of what was withheld stays in you, guiding your eyes, your steps, your silence. I don't miss her, but I still understand her patterns better than anyone else probably ever will. And that's enough. I don't remember when the watching stopped feeling like an act. It became background, like breathing. I no longer kept notes, no longer needed to. I knew her patterns well enough that even when I wasn't looking, I could imagine them precisely. The click of the light switch at night, the sound of her kettle in the morning, the faint hum of her playlist that always started halfway through the same song. It all continued, unchanged. I had become unnecessary to it, yet it still ran through me like muscle memory. Sometimes I caught myself walking past her building without realizing it. The route had worn itself into my routines, as natural as turning a corner. I didn't slow down anymore. I just looked up, briefly, and kept walking. The lights were there, or they weren't. Either way, it didn't matter. The point wasn't seeing. It was knowing I could, if I wanted to. She moved apartments once, a few streets away. I found out by accident. The old place went dark for days, curtains gone, window bare. For a while, I didn't look for the new one. I thought maybe that would be the end. But one evening, weeks later, I saw her again. By chance, or something close to it. She was at a cafe I used to pass, sitting by the window, alone. Different haircut, same nervous gesture with her fingers when she scrolled through her phone. For a moment, I thought she saw me. Then I realized she didn't. Her eyes passed over me without pause. I walked away, calm, steady. That night I found her new building without meaning to. It was almost disappointing how easy it was. The new place was higher up, third floor, curtains thinner. I didn't watch the same way anymore. Sometimes I'd glance up from across the street. Sometimes I'd just stop nearby, listen to the quiet, feel the same detached calm settle over me. It wasn't obsession now. It was habit. Familiarity turned into silence. Months went by like that. She seemed happier, or maybe just busier. Different faces came and went. I recognized one, the man she'd started seeing. He didn't last long. None of them did. She had that effect on people. Always open at first, then slowly retreating behind soft apologies. I could tell from the way she moved afterward, slower, more careful, as if each step required thought. The same way she'd been with me, at the end. Some patterns don't change. I started sleeping better. Sometimes days passed without thinking of her at all. But there were nights when something in the air shifted, and I'd wake suddenly, heart steady but alert, as if someone had called my name from far away. Those nights, I'd get dressed, walk without hurry, and end up near her street. I never went closer than the corner. Just stood there, hands in my pockets, watching the faint light behind her curtains. I never saw her face. I didn't need to. I already knew every version of it. Tired, smiling, guarded, crying. The light was enough. One night, the light didn't turn off. Hours passed. I waited longer than usual, not because I was worried, but because something about the stillness felt different. The air hung heavier, thicker. Around 3 a.m., I saw movement, her silhouette crossing the room, then stopping near the window. She stood there for a long time. Then she pulled the curtain aside and looked out. Straight ahead. I didn't move. I knew she couldn't see me clearly, but something in her posture changed. She leaned forward slightly, as if trying to focus. Then she froze. I could tell by the way her shoulders lifted that she'd felt something, the flicker of recognition, not of me, but of being seen. I turned away before she stepped closer. Walked home slowly, calm, unhurried. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The knowing was enough. After that, I stopped going by altogether. The watching had done its work. It had erased the tension between us, balanced what had been uneven. I didn't want her attention anymore. I only wanted the silence that followed it. It was cleaner that way. Weeks passed. Then one morning, I woke before dawn with a strange certainty that something had shifted. No dream, no message, just a feeling, quiet and precise. I got dressed and walked. The streets were empty, washed pale by early light. Her window was open for the first time since I'd found the new place. Curtains moved slightly in the breeze. No sound, no light, just stillness. I didn't go closer. I just stood there until the sun started to rise, then turned and walked away. That was the last time I saw the window open. After that, she disappeared again, or maybe I just stopped checking. Her online accounts went quiet. A few photos remained, old ones. I didn't scroll far. Whatever she was doing now, it wasn't mine to know anymore. The silence felt final. Not abrupt, just complete. Like the end of a song you've heard too many times to notice when it stops. Sometimes I think about that first night, the soft no, the hesitation, the space she left between us. I used to think it was cruelty. Now I think it was honesty. She was always clearer than I wanted to admit. I was the one who blurred the lines. She didn't owe me closeness. I just mistook proximity for permission. It's strange how much damage small misunderstandings can do when they stretch over time. I don't regret it, though. The quiet that came after taught me something I can't explain easily. How attention can become its own form of prayer. How silence can sharpen until it replaces desire. Watching her all those nights didn't make me feel powerful. It made me feel real, anchored to something outside myself. Even now, when I think of her, it's not with longing or guilt. It's just stillness. Sometimes, walking home late, I'll pass buildings that remind me of hers. Tall windows, thin curtains, the faint glow of a lamp left on too long. And for a moment, I feel the same calm settle over me, that steady pulse of knowing someone exists behind the glass, unguarded, unaware. It's not about her anymore. It never really was. It was about the distance, the edge between knowing and being known. She just happened to be where that started. I imagine her mornings sometimes, waking to quiet, to light pressing through the blinds. Maybe she feels it now, that faint unease in the air, that pause before movement. The sense that something used to be there but isn't anymore. People always think they'd know if they were being watched, but they don't, not really. What they feel is the absence afterward, the sudden stillness where attention used to be. It's subtle, like the echo after a door closes. I think she feels that sometimes. Maybe she even misses it without realizing what it was. Once, months later, I passed her building again. Midday. The windows were open, curtains drawn back. I saw her briefly, watering plants by the sill. She looked calm. Older, maybe. She glanced toward the street for a second, not at me, just in that general direction, then turned away. It was enough. I kept walking. Now, the nights are quieter. I don't wait for lights, or voices, or patterns. I sleep well. But sometimes, around the hour when I used to walk past her street, I wake for no reason. I lie there in the dark, listening to nothing, and it feels familiar. Not empty, just balanced. The way things should have been all along. People think closure comes from words, from explanations or apologies. It doesn't. It comes from silence, from understanding that what's gone no longer needs to be filled. She closed her door 100 times before I finally heard it. Now I keep mine open, just enough to let the quiet in. If she ever thinks of me, I hope it's like a passing thought, something faint and without shape. Not guilt, not nostalgia, just awareness. The kind you feel when you sense eyes on you in an empty room, but when you turn, there's nothing there, just still air, balanced and steady. That's all that's left between us now. I don't need her to remember me. It's enough that, somewhere deep inside, she still pauses sometimes before turning off the light, that half second of hesitation before the dark. I know that feeling well. I gave it to her, and she gave it back, in her own way. We're even?